Like Gemara, today's daf is daf Kufay. We're continuing in the Mishnah about if you carry around the Parim Hanisrafim, you take these bulls that have to be burnt outside of the three camps, like the Yom Kippur or the Kohen Gadol, and you carry it out. The The Mishnah says the people who carried out, not of course of Shimon, of course not a couple people carry become tummy. Those who left the base of Mikdash become tummy. Those who still remain behind don't become tummy. So we're asking a question: what about the animal itself? So the they went out, the animals, and went back in. Mao, me. What about the people who carried out? Me, Amrin, do we say? Kivan the nafkul hu itamlu, because they went out, they become tummy. Doesn't matter, the animal went back in. Once the animal goes back in, the animal is no longer matami, and therefore the people who carried out, even though they were standing outside, as if they never carried out. Amar Baba, Mama, Toshma, coming here. It says in the Mishnah, you say when they say we were carrying the sticks. So the people in the front carried outside the wall. The people in the back didn't carry it out yet. The ones in the front, they become tummy. The ones in the back, don't become tummy. To go out. So right now we understand why don't they become tummy, the people in the back. The animal went outside already, is because if the animal itself would have gone back in, it was no longer be tummy. So the people themselves are there no longer tummy. But these are to keep them. If you're going to tell me they once went out, the animal remains tummy, animal goes back in. So the people inside should become tummy. How do you go to tummy? They should become tummy. So the rayad, that the animal goes back, there's taka no longer any tummy. That's the reason. You know why the people inside don't become tummy? Because there's another pasuk where it says it says in the pasuk that those who burn the animal should wash their clothes, and then it says then you can return. So the pasuk clearly says you had to leave before you become tummy. Nothing to do with the animal. So we haven't answered the question. So exactly Blaz's question. What's the relevant of the animal went back in? The people outside are tummy because the people inside don't become tummy. What's the question? And the question is the people who carried out the second, you brought the animal back in and they carried it the second time. Then if they're still standing inside the base of Mikdash, why should they become tummy? Even if they say the animal is considered tummy inside the base of Mikdash, but the people didn't leave the base of Mikdash, why should they go tummy? It said then afterwards, so we say, no, we're talking about here, the people standing outside the second time around. You put the animal back in, people standing outside, but Nikita will be kukusli, and they lifted the animal with these poles. If you say that the animal is still tummy, then these people are standing outside, they become tummy, even though the animal itself is still sitting inside. But if you tell me that the animal sitting inside is no longer tummy, then obviously the people in the front, the people standing outside don't become tummy, and we don't resolve it. We learned a new concept here. We're talking about the podim. We're talking about these podim upora. We're talking about these podim. And they're like the paradumen and the parfrem that get burnt. All of these, uveseir, and we're talking about the part of the kohen that made a mistake and followed this thing, or the part of the community made a mistake, followed the bezin, and the part of Yom Kippurim. They all learn from each other. And it says over there that what? We see the one who sent away the Seir Mishalech is the goat that you take and you throw off the cliff. And the person who leads the goat, even though the goat is alive, the person who leads it becomes Tameh. Has served for the one who burns all of these other paras, the one who burns it by Mitzin, the one who carries it, Metame Begodim. It's a very strict tumah that even the clothes become Tameh. The hain atzvam, but while the animal itself does not generate such a strict tumah, ain't metame begodim. They don't generate tumah to metame the clothes. Or metame in oichel mashkin. These animals, just the podim hanisrafim, because I should say the reason why, because they are metame later on. It's very strict tumah. They can also be metame right now just by touching it. But what? Only food. Now we know the different levels strata of tumah, and an ava tumah can metame a person, and then there's a rishon that becomes a rishon tumah and a sheni tumah. But food can only be metame, a rishon and a sheni. Only a rishon sheni cannot be metame a person. There's two generations of tumah, rishon and sheni. Givir Rameir. And the Chachamim argue on one point. Which one? Where we argue is Sidim Shtalech, that goat, that while it's alive and it touches things, it's not metame anything, because there's no precedent for a living animal to be metame or generate tumah. Any metame shuchai, it's alive. A living thing is not metame, even food and drink. Says we understand the view of Rabbi Shmuel. What's the view of Rabbi Shmuel? Why are they metame? All these party man is suffering. Why are they metame? You did everything correctly. And generally, if you shechtom, you do everything correctly, he doesn't have metame. Why is it metame? We understand the person who carries it. We'll see later how we know that. The person who burns it, the Torah says, why if it touches food and drink does it become tummy? So told Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says, if a shedet falls on kol zera zerua on any seed that's planted, mazroyim she'ein seifon l'tamei tu mechamura. When it comes to seeds, they cannot be. They're not metame clothes. Utzrich and utzrich in hechsher, and they cannot be metame a person. And in order for something to be makabel tumah, they have to be prepared for it. They have to get wet. They have to be happy. Have kosher ain't safe on the time of tumah. So anything else which does not generate a strict tumah, like not metame a person, the tzich and hechsher needs a preparation for it to be makabel tumah has to be wet. Yotza, the exception is nevelas oif toir. A bird, an oif toir, the carcass of a bird of toir, the way you become tummy is that you swallow it, and when you swallow it, you become tummy and your clothes. So this is a tumah chamura. So even before you swallow it, shesayfel tummy tumah chamura. So therefore, the Ein Tzich does not require any preparation at all. So anything like the potters, because they're going to make a very strict tumah, therefore they're metame oichel mashkin even before even just sitting there. So it makes sense. So therefore, it also makes sense that sim shalech, even though it's a living thing, and living animals don't generate tumah, but because eventually it's going to be generated a very strict tumah, the person who leads it has to wash his clothes, and he becomes tamei. So therefore, even while it's alive, it's metame. El rabban and monoshech. They agree with his svara that I feel sim shalech. Then the sim shalech also should pass on tumah to food and drink. And less they don't know the svara. Then I feel party minon. How do you know that any other animals? If you didn't carry it, just sitting there and touches food, it comes in contact with food, becomes tamei. Is ka'asher Abdim came along. Amri said, the same Yisrael, tzrichin hechshet tumah kamachad. What Rabbi Shmuel meant was they need hechshet tumah. He didn't mean that they have to be prepared for tumah, something. It means that they need tumah from something else. So what Rabbi Shmuel said, anything which will not generate a strict tumah at the end needs a preparation of tumah from somewhere else. That means it should come in contact with the sheretz or a nevela, and does not become tummy by itself. And anything which will become a tummy to mechamor, it does generate, so therefore touches food and drink, it becomes. But a sina mishtaleach is not included. Because you have to be suitable for tumah. This is not even suitable for tumah, it's a living thing. But the question, these podiums in Esrafim already in the base of Migdash, they are ready to be taken out, but right now they're sitting in the base of Migdash, and are they metame food and drink? What's the shaila? The fact he didn't take it out of the base of Migdash yet means that it's still lacking a mice. There's no connection yet to. You're right. Eventually it'll become a tumah chamura, but at this stage there's not even a potential for it because it's inside the base of Migdash. Or maybe not. That it's just a question of taking it out. It's already considered as if it's going to bring a strict tumah, and therefore it should be time to food and drink. After the question, he resolved it. Lacking taking out is just like mechutz maisa, as if it's missing a maisa as well. In other words, it's not mekabel. It's not generating any tumah inside the base of English. Is another similar question. Nevelas oif Taylor Meir. According to the Meir, follow this for Rabbi Shmuel literally that anything which will eventually become a very strict tumah is already metame right now. So the nevela oif Taylor Meir mau sheitame bekazais. According to the Meir, we say that it's already metame food and drink. But so will the nevela oif Taylor be metame food by kazais? And now, according to the Rabban, it's not a question because they say it has to be suitable for tumah, and a relative Torah can only be metame if you swallow it, and therefore, since he's sitting on the ground, sitting there somewhere, it's not going to generate tumah. But according to the Meir, it says anything which eventually can lead to a stricter tumah right now, even though it's not the role of tumah like a living animal, is metame. So, what happens to a kazayis? Of an avela sitting there is a metame not. Someone now explains the question. The master of sitting on the ground like to boil off because it's not suitable to who said it ever be eaten. It only has to be only when it's eaten is a generating tumah. So who said that it's ever going to be eaten? So it's not considered as if it's a role to a strict tumah. The nakiv, on the other hand, if it's sitting in your mouth and you have other food in your mouth, later there's no question that it will be metame because it's not just suitable to eat, you're eating it. The nakiv, you're holding it in your hand, which in all probability you're going to put it in your mouth afterwards. Do we say because you didn't bring it to your mouth yet, as if it has no connection to your mouth, it's not considered as if it's going to be, or not. Actually, it's an interesting discussion in Hilchos Yadayim. If you're allowed to give someone bread who's not going to wash their hands, you put it on the table in front of them, you put it in their hand, or you put it in their mouth. The Gemara's question should be related to that, even though they don't bring it to connection, that if you put it in your hand, is it already as if you gave it in his mouth and you're evil if evil is sitting michshel giving someone bread to eat, knowing that they're not going to wash on it? And we say mechusa kreve ki mechusa ma'isa dami aloi, and then the Gemara resolves it. Mechusa kreve lav ki mechusa ma'isa dami. Mechusa is not considered mechusa ma'isa as if it's already you're going to bring it to your mouth, and therefore it would be if you go back up there, it should be lifnei ibad as well. Acer, I'll ask you a question. So you're telling me that even a kazayis of the velos according to May is considered as if it's in the hand, as if it's already to give tumah. I'll ask you a question. Shloisha says one of 13 things. 13 dinim I said regarding the rest of Torah. One is you have to think that you're eventually going to eat it, and number two is it doesn't need any preparation. To the tame, it doesn't need water. Normally, you have to get wet. You don't need it. Nor do you need a davar like a shed is touching it to become tame. It's tame on its own. Why? Because since eventually it'll be a tumah chamura. Because if you eat it, you'll become tame. The person becomes tame, and the clothes become tame. And metame tumas eichlin like a beya. Now, generally, to metame food, you need the size of a beya. Machlek is to receive tumah. According to Rashi, in many places you have to be a beya as well. According to places you don't. But you need to what? It's metame oichlin the size of a beya. Now, because we're saying you need machshava and you don't need hechsher, it tells us the following: it must be talking about sitting in your hand. Because if it's sitting on the ground, then why doesn't it need preparation? Remember, we said it's not definitely going to be eaten, and therefore sitting on the ground there's no connection to your eating. It needs, like any other thing, has to be prepared for tumah. Navas. It's not on the ground. But if it's in your mouth, then why do you need machshava? What if you're doing a maisa, you're eating, what do you need machshava for? So talking about it's in your hand. And so therefore, and says you need a beya. And it needs a beya. This follows that even according to the Rabbanon, if you have a machshava and a hechsher, then you need a beya. Because the meir, because ice is enough. Because that's because when you're eating, how much do you have to eat? Also the kazayis. So therefore, to tumah also it's a kazayis. Says the Gemara, Vaktani Reisha. It says in the Reisha, Tzricha Machshava ve'ein tzricha hechsher. It says in the Reisha that you need a machshava and you don't need any preparation. Uman Shamla has who holds this for you don't need any preparation. Rameir, the Reisha, Rameir is safe for Namir, Rameir, Rameir. So who said the Reisha Rameir is safer? Hakinisa. The beginning of that din is Rameir. And now it follows the Rabbanon. That's why you need a beya, not a kedais. So what we're talking about, but the next section of the Rise Maktani Sefer, it says in the next session, it says there when he says in the mission of Maktani Sefer, Shchitasam Likosim, if you shecht an animal and turn it to be treif, it's not considered an avela, it's not generating tumor, and we had a discussion about it regarding a bird as well. And a mayor is the one who said by a bird, if you did a shchita or a malik and turn out to be treif, it's not generating tumor. It's not generating tumor. Man shamale hasvara. Who holds this svara? So Meir said it. So it comes out the reish of this mission and the sefer is Meir. In the middle is actually Rabbanan. That's really odd. That's odd. So yes, we have no choice. I can say reish of a sefer Meir Rabbanan. Yes, and therefore Meir personally can hold a kazayis because he holds like Rabbi Shmuel. He takes Shmuel literally. That since it'll be a tumah chamura, it's already by a kazayis as well. Even though right now it's not suitable tumah, but because later on it'll become tummy, it already has all these dinim. And the same thing is mishtalech. Since later on it's generating tumah, even now while it's a living animal, it's generating tumah. And at the Rabban holding you the beya. Don't sit down and you put until you tell me you don't sit down on your knees until you tell me how milsa the following did. Still continuing on the subject of meir, how milsa and avelas oiv toiler a meir than avela of an oiv toiler. According to the meir, who says that it's matame by itself, even the size of a kazayis, is that like if whatever it touches, does it make it a sheni and that's the end of the line, or does it make it a rishon? No, the veil of Torah itself is like an avatuma. That makes it a rishon. The rishon will make a sheni. In other words, that food that it touches can be tami other food or not. The minor rishon sheni doesn't have 2 more generations to go away. In the minor rishon sheni, that whatever this kazayis of the bird touches becomes a sheni, and that's the end of the line. And it's tami, it's called apostle. Doesn't go any further. Amalei, this is the rule. Kol heicha de metame adam b'maga. If this kazayis will be metame a person, then if it touches food, it becomes the first becomes addition. So too, it touches food becomes addition, and that food can metame other food. But because this kazayis and vela cannot be metame a person, therefore all it does is makes a shady. So there's no din Sheni, you just go straight to Sheni. Similar question. That if you have two pieces of half a kazaisim or two half a kazais of a veils of Torah over here, another half kazais here, and then there's a liquid that's joining, bonding the two together. Does it form one piece or not? So he says it is considered a chibur when it comes to for light tumor, for example, generating tumor to touch food or drink, but it doesn't have the capacity to become a person or the metame a person or kalim. And Rashi actually says the time I'm not sure I understand the difference. Why is it only metame if it's either it's one or it's not one? So yes. Taisha doesn't like to try to roll. Taisha says that the water does not join it together to make it a roll. And Taisha just says it's talking about whether it became sort of watery, and does it become one, solid and became watery? Is it considered one piece or not? Do we count Rishon Sheni? Don't we count Rishon Sheni there? When we say jointing becomes one kazayis, does it go straight to a Sheni, the lowest level, or does it make a Rishon Sheni? We have the same answer. If this had capacity matami a person, which it doesn't, then Moinim by Rishon Sheni, because a person becomes a Rishon, so therefore it's able to do a Rishon Sheni. As Rashi explains, that's how we learn two Mesheretz. So therefore the Sheret touches the Keli, and the Keli touches the food. So there's two more generations. That's only if it touches an Avatumah. But every time if a person does come to me, ain't Moinim by Rishon Sheni. Yotzu elu be'elu. No, and immediately, how do you know that? Something about it. Yotzu elu, how do you know that? If everyone goes out, they all become tummy. How do you know people carrying it become tummy? The pasuk only says the people who burn the parim and stuff. But not how do you know that? Talk about me learn. It says in the pasuk, "Machna is outside of 3 camps." We know that you have to burn outside 3 camps. We count the machna. There's only 1 camp. I tell you, once it goes out, and then by Parayim Kibbutz it says going out of 1 camp. You have to burn it on 3 camp, not after 1 camp. To tell you that there's no din regarding 1 camp. And what is that? The moment the people carry it outside the first camp, they become tummy ready. Bringing it to the outside, so we'll soon see how we know that. If you know how do you burn outside of 3 camps? That's what we learned. Well, you go the part outside of the camp. And you pour it in a place called Shavach Hadash, where you have the pile of ashes, and then you burn it. Chutz l'gil machna means outside the 3 camps, outside Yerushalayim. How do you know Yerushalayim? Maybe just out of the base of Midrash, onto the Temple Mount. When it says by the par, with the entire community made a mistake based on the Ezen. It says there again, you should take the par out of the Chutz machna and burn it like you burnt the par of the Kohen Mashiach, which we already know. It's Chutz machna. You don't have to say it. It says Kashasar Paradish. It says very. Burn. It says in the position the power ha'edim like made a mistake like the power of Kohen Mashiach. Why is it the same with Machna? Say Kasher Barishan Little Machna. She tell you out of the second camp. Don't just go out of the base and just go outside of the Temple Mount as well. So Yerushalayim. The Hainu outside of Yerushalayim. But then it says again, Chutz Machna. It says you should take it out Chutz Machna Makom Torah. It says Ashrach Hadesh, and it says you should take it out to place it where the ashes are. It tells you what, a third machna as well. It says when you take out all the ashes in the bech, you take it out to mechutz machna. I know mechutz machna means you take it out. It's the same place we do the parim on the strafim, because there it says pour it down where you're going to burn the ashes. The people carrying that. Ayim is only out of the 3rd camp. To do the fact that it says out of the 1st camp, was you learn from that. But he used it for the time. We know that outside of the 3 camps. And by part of the supplement says out of 3 camps, also part of Dum is out of the 3 camps. Just like with that part of Dum, it's the east side of Yerushalayim, because it says you should face the oil moed. So where do you burn the ashes? In the east side of Yerushalayim. Top. El Rabbanon, according to Rabbanon, where do you actually burn it? But they use this pasuk to teach you that you people carry it. Tanya, they burned the leftover ashes somewhere else. Heichen is Rafin, let's soften Ishmael, the north, because Kachim, where do you shacht in the north? Everything in the north. Chutz Shalosh Machnas is outside the three camps. Now basically, it says the Pasuk Shvach Hadesh, and it means that base Hadesh is Rafin. First put some ashes from the Mizbeach, and then on top of that, you put the ashes over the Parim and the Rafin. Amar Rav Mantan, the Paul who argues, he says who argues. Now let's bring Yaakov. Tanya, we learn. Should be some ashes. Should be on a slope, nothing to do with ashes. I'm going to buy you. So buy you think he argues? He may only argue whether it's a slope or not, but he agrees that there has to be pre-existing ashes. When it burns, it has to exist close to tummy. Another one likes the fire. The fire metame begodim is metame the clothes. Another one who sets up the fire metame begodim. Who's the burner? Who actually helps while you're lighting the fire. Even after it became ashes, somebody comes and helps. The metame begodim. They have to still be existing. Oisam metame begodim. Only when they're existing, mishanas and ephah. Once they become ashes, ain't metame begodim. No longer metame the clothes. Only those who are involved in the actual burning of it. Only when they're still existing. If decomposes, ain't metame begodim. No longer, if you're involved, then you're not metame. My bad, that's the difference. What happens if you let's say charred it? That's this is decomposing, but you still